the incoming chair of the Joint Economic Committee, Mr. Schweikert.
I hope that had the tone of you being happy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ferry, CBO a little while ago put out a letter, hours ago, I think, and one of their numbers was a dynamic score that a 10% across the board would static decrease deficits by about 2.2 trillion, dynamic about 2.1. But if it's a broad-based, are you someone as, because you have pretty impressive economic credentials, do you also see the currency adjustment within a broad-based, sort of flat model tariff like that?
Our own model shows with a larger tariff, 20 and 60, roughly $6 trillion of federal income over 10 years. So that's considerably more, okay? And that's because we assume the economy will grow more than I suspect the CBO does, although I haven't read the CBO's.
The CBO letter was just, I don't think, they did a 60% tariff, but some of the numbers in there were solely focused on, looks like on China. But have you ever run the 10% model?
Yes, we've run a 10% model and published it, and it was somewhat consistent with what you're asking about. Let me answer your question directly. Because currency is what you're interested in?
Yeah, currency is one of my, because there's a reason for that.
Right, and most of these models do not include currency because currency is a nominal variable, a monetary variable, not a real variable. So you have to take a position on what you think would happen in the currency. And my view is that the currency value of the dollar is not determined by the trade balance, and I think there's 50 years of evidence to show that. I would have supported the DBCFA if it had included a proposal to manage the currency. The U.S. needs to manage the dollar to a competitive level. So what I'm saying is the currency is completely unpredictable. I actually agree with the incoming Treasury Secretary that governments in certain advanced countries, particularly the Anglo-Saxon countries, will typically allow stupid things to happen to their currency. So what we would need to do to achieve what you're talking about is manage the dollar, hold it at a competitive level, and say we're going to allow those tariffs to increase the size of the productive sector of the economy.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
It does. Look, I don't have a PhD, but I always then worry about nominal interest rates effects on the selling of debt. A good example, look what happened to Brazil yesterday and other countries that have also tried to do some of the management of the currency value. The debt markets, particularly a country like ours, we brought, what, 10 trillion to market last year? And with our demographics, it's going to get worse. Matter of fact, a couple of minutes ago, the 10-year went over 4.5%, even though the Fed reduced interest rates, and I think that's partially future expectations of our demographics and our binging on debt. So I'm trying to work with my brothers and sisters on this committee and Ways and Means on how do we maximize economic productivity and growth, tax receipts as an offset to a debt where, we have a CR heading to the floor that may be about to add another $140 billion of unoffset debt. So that means our baseline now is already, what, 2.3 trillion debt this year, coming year? Maybe with some of the other economic factors, if interest rates stay this high, you're going to a 2.6. That means you're borrowing $80,000 a second. We got a math problem. And so is a tariff, destination tax, choosing those who we like and incentivizing trade with them and punishing those we don't? It's somewhere here there has to be a unified theory of both receipt stabilization, economic growth maximization, and accepting the reality of our demographics. Remember, 100% of the debt, basically from today to the next 10 years, is interest and demographics. It's healthcare costs. We got old. That's not Republican or Democrat, it's math. but it's so hard because we're so busy beating the crap out of each other partisan-wise that we don't actually pull out things called, what are they called? Oh, calculators.
Well,
And sorry for the preaching, but I'm frustrated.
No, you're right. This is a serious problem. What we have to do is get the budget deficit down, which involves cutting spending. We can, as you say, increase tax receipts by growing the productive sector through tariffs and industrial policies. And we can hold interest rates down in doing that. We can.
And I hope there's actually even a third round, because there's a difference between industrial policy and subsidized industrial policy, because across the world now we've set off a cascade where China, I think, has put 36 billion into their chip sector. Europe just did almost the same thing. Taiwan's about to do it. So all we did is now create rent-seeking around the world when it's industrial policy with cash. And there becomes the problem. We didn't actually gain really that much true productivity because we just set off a subsidization cycle around the world. So with that, I yield back. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Schweikert.